안녕하세요. 미국주식으로 은퇴하기 미주은입니다. 제가 주말 동안 가족 여행을 다녀와서 그런지 정말 오래간만에 인사를 드리는 느낌입니다. 미주은 패밀리 분들 모두 알차게 그리고 즐겁게 주말 보내셨으리라고 믿습니다. 지난주 금요일 4월 15일은요. 굿 프라이데이였습니다. 그래서 미국 증시도 하루 개장을 하지 않았는데요. 덕분에 오늘 미주은에서도 정규 방송을 잠깐 멈추고요. 오래간만에 대가의 목소리 시리즈를 보내드리고자 합니다. 오늘 대가의 목소리 주인공은요. 캐시우드입니다. 개인에 따라서 캐시우드는 대가의 목소리 주인공으로는 어울리지 않는다, 적절하지 않다라고 평가하시는 분들도 분명 계시라고 생각을 하는데요. 전 개인적으로 캐시우드라는 사람이 참 멋있다고 생각을 합니다. 제가 운영하고 있는 그 미국 주식 포트폴리오에는 사실 빅테크 기업이 반 가까이 차지하고 있기 때문에 투자의 성향이 완전히 일치하는 그런 투자자는 아니거든요. 그럼에도 불구하고 캐시우드가 지속적으로 보여주는 성장주에 대한 믿음 그리고 확신에는 큰 존경심을 느끼고 있고요. 또 개인적으로 제가 60대 후반이 됐을 때 캐시우드처럼 참 멋있게 그리고 지적으로 나이가 들었으면 하는 바람도 가지고 있습니다. 오늘 방송 한 가지 양해의 말씀을 또 드리고 싶은데요. 오늘 보내드리는 대가의 목소리에는 제가 중간중간 정리도 해드리고 개인적인 첨언을 좀 해드리잖아요. 이런 의견이 첨부되지는 못할 것 같습니다. 제가 지난 2박 3일 동안 캠핑을 통해서 심신이 좀 피폐해진 상황이라 회복 기간이 좀 필요할 것 같습니다. 하지만 캐시우드라는 투자자가 워낙 말솜씨가 뛰어난 분이라서 저의 해설이 가미되지 않아도 충분히 그녀의 멋진 인사이트를 여러분들께서 오늘 영상과 자막을 통해서 즐기실 수 있으리라고 확신합니다. 자, 그럼 캐시우드와 함께하는 대가의 목소리 바로 시작합니다.
Had a lot of volatility in 21 and that's kind of carried over into 22. How has this affected your response to portfolios? Are you doing anything differently?
Well, we're doing right now what we always do during a correction, and this has been an extended one, almost a year now. And we've been concentrating our portfolios towards our highest conviction names. And so we haven't done anything different. And the reason for that is the innovation that we're investing in is following learning curves that are dropping costs and prices and increasing the access to these technologies throughout the world. So they are scaling exponentially, and we just want to be there for the ride.
So there's some concerns that maybe the downside volatility been driven by deterioration in the underlying fundamentals of your holdings.
Well, no, although those who tag our portfolios with the stay-at-home description would suggest that there's decelerating growth and that it probably will not pick back up. That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, pulled a lot of business ahead. And we think that this year, now that we are getting through the toughest comparisons in terms of the coronavirus, when consumers and businesses were adopting technologies aggressively to solve some big problems they were encountering, now that we're passing through the toughest comparisons, we think this controversy will be put to bed because as we cycle through, we believe their growth rates are going to accelerate. Forces in motion, if we're talking about better, cheaper, faster, more productive, more creative, solving problems, those don't turn back. And so we think that's going to be the big surprise this year.
Well, I remember talking to you about this pre-pandemic, and then throughout this pandemic 2 years that we've had, you would bring up different companies like Teladoc, for example, yes. And the story just kept getting stronger and stronger. Maybe use that as an example.
Sure, I'd love to. So Teladoc is now in our top 5, as is Zoom and Roku. These would fall into the stay-at-home stock category. And we've been increasing our position as we've been concentrating our portfolio. And just to refresh your memory, as we are, the reason we concentrate our portfolios is because during risk-off periods, most investors and analysts diversify their portfolios and get closer to their benchmarks, the benchmarks against which they're measured. We do not have any one benchmark. That's not what we do. What we do is buy the stocks that they are selling, because very often in our portfolios, the stocks are either small positions in indexes or they're not in indexes. Our active share relative to NASDAQ or S&P is in the 3 to 6% range. So very few stocks in our portfolios are in the indexes. As investors are selling those shares, again, a decision just to get closer to their benchmark, we're buying them and concentrating our portfolios towards our highest conviction names. So let's talk about Teladoc. And I did write down a few statistics here. Of course, a lot of people introduced to telemedicine during the coronavirus crisis. They got their first taste. And to the extent they can help it, meaning they don't absolutely have to see a doctor for checkup reasons, need to be done personally, we are not going back to the old way of doing things. Now, if you look at the revenue of Teladoc, it is up fourfold from 2019. And perhaps more important, the ARPU, the average revenue per user, has gone from $1, roughly $1, to $2.60. And our analyst, Simon Barnett, says that if they did a lot more cross-selling and just theoretically every person took all of their services, that ARPU could go all the way to 68. Now, of course, it won't, but it is going a lot higher. Now, in this, they just guided to the December quarter, 43% growth, which was higher than consensus expectations. And that revenue for 2021 now stands at $2 billion. That's a real company. A lot of sellers of our stocks they're probably quantitative strategists using algorithms and really don't care what a company does. And many just have used valuation as a reason to sell our stocks. And they compare our strategy to a tech and telecom bubble strategy. None of the companies in the tech and telecom bubble that I remember got anywhere near $2 billion in sales. So there may have been the odd one, and maybe Amazon was a very low margin company was there. But Teladoc is at $2 billion. It has 68% gross margins. I'll just wrap this one up by saying many people who do pay a lot more attention to stocks in the various indices are basically dismissing Teladoc as, hey, United Healthcare could do that easily. Well, the fact is, and maybe they could, they are trying to do it in some way, but this is not their DNA. And if you look at Teladoc's price to sales right now, which is what we have to do with these high growth companies as they're revving into profitability on the operating income line, Teladoc's price to sales is 5 times. United Health, 13 to 14 times. Teladoc's growth rate, revenues, they will tell you over the next 3 to 5 years, 25 to 30% plus. And United Health, maybe 10%. So there's something very interesting about this picture, just throwing out the way the world is going to work in order to buy more of the way the world has worked. And we think that will prove to be a mistake.
Well, you're so right. I mean, my wife and my kids have all used a teledoc type service over the last couple of years. It's so nice and it's so easy. And even though it's safer to go back into the dental office, obviously, or see your physician, or if you've got something going on, to be able to do a teledoc appointment has just been fantastic. And I hope we're not going back. And I can't imagine how short-sighted people are that say that they want to get back in line at a dentist's office and wait a half hour. And it's also less expensive, right?
It's less expensive. There is a major labor shortage brewing in the healthcare industry, as we all know. This is going to be one of the solutions to that problem, and the healthcare system will become more efficient because of it. If I could just give you, in terms of this idea of tough comparisons, I'll give you the most extreme example in the portfolio, Zoom. Just to set Zoom up a little bit, Zoom's user base has gone from 20 million users before the coronavirus to 200 million. Now, many people say, oh, yeah, but a lot of those people aren't paying. Okay, its revenues have gone up sixfold from 2019 to 2021. It is about to face its toughest comparison. Revenue in the fourth quarter a year ago went up 370%. Now, the fear with Zoom is, okay, going back to work, this story is over. Well, it's not over. Now, that is the toughest quarter they face. The next quarter, they'll be facing 185% growth. Well, we think their revenue growth rate will accelerate. That is when I think a lot of investors will get an aha moment. Wait a minute, what is going on here? Accelerating against this 185% number. And just to give you a sense of their gross margins, 65 to 68. Most of our companies have very nice gross margins. Its valuation today is 8.5 times revenue. Microsoft's, and many people say, I know it's just a microcosm of Microsoft. Microsoft's a much more mature company. Microsoft's price to sales is 10 times. So you can see that many of these emerging growth companies that got an accelerated boost, a tailwind from the COVID crisis, are now selling at lower multiples on that basis than the most mature companies in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's crazy to believe. And another quick story, Kathy. So I've been in New York a couple times. We're here in California. We have a lot of clients in the financial services business that are in New York City. And you know what? Maybe I'll have a lunch or maybe we'll go out to some dinners. But people don't want to meet in the office. They find it more efficient to meet like this over Zoom. Mm-hmm. And I would go back to the hotel room and have meetings between the meals, and I could have more meetings, more effective, more efficient. And our company with people all over North America, we're not going back. And
we're not,
right?
Yes, and what most people do not understand when it comes to Zoom in particular, communications, that category, is the largest part of the technology, the enterprise technology stack. So telecommunications globally is a $1.5 trillion business. Zoom's revenue base is $4 billion. Again, a real company. Now, we believe that we are in the first major, you'd call it rip and replace, except this is digital, first major rip and replace cycle for the communications part of the tech stack since the early 90s. This is a $1.5 trillion category. Zoom is starting to replace PBXs. So the Ciscos and the Polycoms out there, we believe, are going to be pushed out. So this is a much bigger story than just video communications, although we do believe that is a very valuable piece of the story.
So, Kathy, let's switch gears for a second. You touched a little bit on Teladoc. Healthcare and genomics names were hit particularly hard in the last 12 months. Talk about that space, and are you still excited about it?